everyone sat ready to go the night before they left. They sat ready with their staff in their hand and with their robes and their belts tightened around their waist and their sandals on their feet while they ate that Passover meal, while the angel of the Lord passed over their homes. They sat ready, waiting. And in the morning, there was this hush. There was this anticipation that something was going to happen that morning that was different than the past 400 years of slavery that they had. That's all they knew. And they waited for God to act. And that's how they stood still, waiting for God. And they were ready to go when God moved. So picture this setting of God's quick salvation. They didn't have enough time to let their dough rise. They just took their dough and they put it in the kneading bowls. They tied it up and put it on their backs. They were ready to go out when God moved. And they were ready with their kneading bowls, with all of their belongings, what little they had. And then when they went to, then God told them that they were to go to the Egyptians, their slave masters, and say, please give us your jewelry. What? Please give us your jewelry. And so they said, okay. Please give us your jewelry. And they said, fine, take it. Here's some more. Here's some more. And this was kind of a repayment for the slavery, the thankless, payless work that they did for 400 years. And now they're getting all this wealth from their captors. And they're saying, here, take this, get out. This was 400 years of slavery. Nobody just gets up and leaves after 400 years of slavery. This is something amazing that God did. He worked mightily for his people. In impossible odds, there was no way to win, but God won. Were they ever going to forget this victory that God gave them? Were the children of Israel ever going to just oh yeah, what happened? No, they were going to remember this forever, right? 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 While the Israelites were following God in a pillar of cloud by day, covering over them in the hot desert, and then a pillar of fire at night to light the way, they were following God out into the desert, and God said, Pharaoh and his armies, they will see you, and they will think, they're just wandering out there in the wilderness. We need to go and take them back. And isn't it interesting that when people are following God, to other people it looks a lot like wandering. Just wandering in the desert. But they were following God, and he knew where he would take them. And so they're wandering, and they're walking in the desert, and they follow God to a place right next to the Red Sea, where they're hemmed in, the Red Sea on one side of them and a mountain on the other. And as they get to this place, Pharaoh and his people back home, they think, wait, what just happened? Where did all of our slaves go? Did we really just let all of our slaves leave? They say, we need to finish this wall. We need some bricks. And the taskmasters go, I don't know how to make bricks. I just told them what to do, and they did it. I don't know what I'm doing. I just cracked the whip, and they did all the work. I don't know how to do it. And the Egypt was on a standstill. They didn't know what to do anymore. And so they said, that's it. Let's get up, let's go, and let's bring them back. Let's bring them back into slavery, because we can't function this way. We need someone to oppress. We need someone to work for us. And so Pharaoh, he gets all of his army and 600 chariots. Is this a little bit of an overkill? Just a little bit? He goes a few steps further, because these are slaves. They're not an army. They're men, women, and children, and a bunch of goats out in the desert. 600 chariots, all of Pharaoh's army. Pharaoh led the greatest army of that time. They all come out in full force. And in verse 10, and you have it in your bulletins, in verse 10 of chapter 14 of Exodus, it says, as Pharaoh approached, the Israelites looked up, and there were the Egyptians marching after them, and they were terrified, and they cried out to the Lord. Have you ever been in this position? Have you ever been up against the sea, up against the ocean, up against with your backs to the waters? I'm going to ask for some responses. So, have you ever been up with your back up against the water and army coming towards you? That in metaphor, of course. Tell me, what was it like? What was it? What did it have to do with what? Scary and fearful. Why? What was it? No idea. What else? What kind of panic? Challenging. Mm-hmm. What situations were these? What was the ocean to you? Ran out of money? Oh, yep. 2 weeks and no money to pay rent. Boy, up against the sea, up against the ocean. What are you going to do? You have the army, the 2 weeks marching towards you. What else? We're not used to silence. That's okay. No job. What are you going to do? They were suddenly consumed with these same feelings that they had before they were redeemed, before they were rescued from Egypt. God had just saved them through 10 plagues riddled Egypt, and they were let go. They were, in fact, pushed out of Egypt. Leave, go, here's my jewelry, here's my family heirlooms, just take it and leave. We don't want you in slavery anymore. And they were sent out. And now they're up against the sea, and they are terrified because they see Egypt marching after them. They forgot. They forgot. We have to make a choice to trust again and again, even after being delivered in a mighty way from something terrible. We have to make that choice to trust. Now, this is verse 11. I like it because sarcasm comes in. And you know sarcasm, it always comes in at the best part. And in those trying times, it's that good kind of sarcasm. It's that witty sarcasm. It's that smart sarcasm. And Israel says to Moses, was it because there were no graves in Egypt that you brought us into the desert to die? Sarcasm. Didn't we say to you in Egypt, leave us alone, let us serve the Egyptians? It would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the desert. Clever stuff, huh? Oh, did you bring us out into the desert because there were no graves in Egypt? Egypt built the pyramids. They're graves. They're known, that's what they got, graves. Were there no graves in Egypt? Is that what you brought us out here? And look at Moses' reply, though. What does Moses reply? He says, do not be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the deliverance that the Lord will bring you today. The Egyptians you see today, you will never see again. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. I think that sometimes God brings us into dead ends so he can give us an experience of trusting him. And it's hard in those dead ends, isn't it? When you're up against the sea and you have no other option but to trust. So then you see in verse 19 that the angel of God and the pillar of cloud move from the front, leading to the back to protect. And as the sun set, that cloud separated them, the Israelites, from the army of Pharaoh. And to Pharaoh, it was a cloud of darkness and blackness. It was thick. They couldn't move forward. But then to the Israelites, the cloud was light. It was bright, and it shone on them. Have you ever been at the edge of the ocean at night? Have you ever been standing on the beach and looked out over the sea and just maybe the moonlight was reflecting off the waters? Imagine Israel standing at this thing that is keeping them close to their enemies, that is preventing them from moving forward, and the light from this pillar of fire, the presence of the Lord, is glistening off the sea foam. They have their enemies on one side. There used to be captors. There would be captors on one side. And you've got God in between and his reflection across the waters. And then, in verse 21, Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and all that night the Lord drove the sea back with a strong east wind and turned it into dry land. We move over that text really fast, don't we? And he turned the sea into dry land. The waters were divided, and the Israelites went through the sea on dry ground with a wall of water on their right and on their left. That doesn't happen every day. The Egyptians pursued them can you imagine walking through these walls of water? It must have been something so amazing that you couldn't explain it. I mean, how can you explain a situation where water does what it never does? It stands up and it stays on one side and the other. And you can see, and you'll see that it's so hard to describe it. They have to describe it many times over because it was amazing. This was the power of God to save them. When they were up against the sea, it opened and they went through. And the Egyptians pursued, and all of Pharaoh's horses and chariots and horsemen followed them into the sea. This is at night. It's dark. The only light is that from God. And as they walk, they see the glittering armor of Pharaoh's army and the chariots coming after them. And as they reach the other side, it says, verse 24, during the last watch of the night, the Lord saw the Egyptians. The Lord looked down from the pillar of fire and cloud as at the Egyptian army and threw it into confusion. If you've been with us for the past few weeks, we've seen that God saw the Israelites in their slavery. He heard their cries for freedom. He remembered his covenant with them, and he knew. Now the Lord sees the Egyptians, and he looks down from the pillar of fire, and he throws them into confusion. He jammed the wheels of their chariots so that they had difficulty driving, and the Egyptians said, "Let's get away from the Israelites. The Lord is fighting for them against Egypt." Verse 27, then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and at daybreak, just as the sun began to rise, the sea went back to its place. The water flowed back and covered the chariots and horsemen, the entire army of Pharaoh that had followed the Israelites into the sea. Not one of them survived. And as the sun rose that next morning, they saw on the opposite bank the bodies of those that would have destroyed them. They saw the victory of God. Destruction of all the foes of righteousness and all those that would perpetuate oppression. Verse 29, but the Israelites went through the sea on dry ground, with a wall of water on their right and on their left. That day the Lord saved Israel from the hands of the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians lying dead on the shore. Verse 31. Now, notice here, this is neat. And when the Israelites saw the mighty hand of the Lord. First, we have God who sees Israel and hears their cry and remembers and knows. And now we have Israel seeing the Lord and what he's done against their captors. And the people feared the Lord and put their trust in him and in Moses, his servant. When we celebrate Sabbath, it is a time of pause. It's a time of reflection. It's an opportunity for you to look back on what God has done in your life, to remember the things, the victories that God has given you over the things that would destroy you. And for Israel, for Moses, he began to sing a song of what God had just done for them. For me, I have songs with God. You know how couples have their song when it comes on the radio, they go, oh, this is our song. Me and God, we have our song. We have just a closer walk with thee. And I'm telling you, when my phone's on shuffle and I'm driving and I'm stressing out over something, many times in the middle of, why is this happening to me? What's my way out? That song, boop, happens to be the next one. Another song is the Isaacs. I don't know if you know the Isaacs. They sing a song that says, stand still and God will move, but standing still is hard to do. Oh, is it ever? Another song of mine, and I want to know yours, another song of mine is The Reason by Hoobastank. That's my song with God. That's my song with God. The reason's you, I've messed up. What are your songs? Can I hear from you? What are your songs? Which one? Incubus, which song? Love Hurts. It's a good one. It's your song. And when that comes on, you have to remember. You have to remember. What's another one? Revelation song. Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Oh, got me right there. Anybody else? Who else? Yeah. Knocking on Heaven's Door. Okay, I'm going to have to... iTunes is going to get some money from me soon. What else? Unwritten? Oh, that's a beautiful one. Natasha Benford. Benfield, okay. What else? He knows my name. These are the songs that we have with God. And this is the song that Moses sang, chapter 15 of Exodus. Then Moses and the Israelites sang this song to the Lord. I will sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously. Both horse and driver he has thrown into the sea. The Lord is my strength and my defense. He has become my salvation. He is my God, and I will praise him, my father's God, and I will exalt him. The Lord is a warrior. The Lord is his name. Pharaoh's chariots and his army he has hurled into the sea. The best of Pharaoh's officers are drowned in the Red Sea. The deep waters have covered them. They sank to the depths like a stone. Your right hand, Lord, was majestic in power. Your right hand, Lord, shattered the enemy. In the greatness of your majesty, you threw down those who oppressed you. You unleashed your burning anger. It consumed them like stubble by the blast from your nostrils. The waters piled up. The surging waters stood up like a wall. The deep waters congealed in the very heart of the sea. The enemy boasted, I will pursue, I will overtake them, I will divide their spoils, I will gorge myself on them, I will draw my sword, and my hand will destroy them. But you blew with your breath, and the sea covered them. They sank like lead in the mighty waters. Who among the gods is like you, Lord? Who is like you, majestic in holiness, awesome in glory, working wonders? You stretched out your right hand, and the earth swallows your enemies. In your unfailing love, you will lead the people you have redeemed. In your strength, you will guide them to your holy dwelling. The nations will hear and tremble. Anguish will grip the people of Philistia. The chiefs of Edom will be terrified. The leaders of Moab will be seized and trembling. The people of Canaan will melt away. Terror and dread will fall on them. By the power of your arm, they will be as still as a stone until your people pass by, Lord. Until the people you bought pass by, you will bring them in and plant them on the mountain of your inheritance, the place, Lord, you made for your dwelling, the sanctuary, Lord, your hands established. The Lord reigns forever and ever. Thank you. For Pharaoh's horses, chariots, and horsemen went into the sea. The Lord brought the waters of the sea back over them, but the Israelites walked through the sea on dry ground. Then Miriam, the prophet, Aaron's sister, took a timbrel in her hand, and all the women followed her with timbrels and dancing. And Miriam sang to them, Sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously. Both horse and rider he has thrown into the sea. And someday, I hope very soon, we will be standing on the other side of that river, on that other shore. And in Revelation 15, it describes this scene. Revelation 15 says, Then I saw another sign in heaven, great and amazing, 7 angels with 7 plagues, which are the last, for with them the wrath of God is finished. And I saw what appeared to be a sea of glass mingled with fire, and also those who had conquered the beast and its image and the number of its name, standing beside the sea of glass with harps of God in their hands. And they sing the song of Moses, the servant of God, and the song of the Lamb, saying, Great and amazing are your deeds, O Lord God the Almighty. Just and true are your ways, O King of the nations. Who will not fear, O Lord, and glorify your name? For you alone are holy. All nations will come and worship you, for your righteous acts have been revealed. I want you to ask yourself this question. What is the song that you sing? What is the song that you sing about what God has done for you? May God bless you all.